Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to SportStatMedia with me, your host, Michael. Before we begin, I want to say that I certainly hope all of our viewers are staying safe and remaining healthy during this time. In this segment of SportStatMedia, we are going to be taking a look together at when Major League Baseball could return in the summer of 2020 and what that return could look like. Initially, there was talk of attempting to resume baseball with a plan of playing all games in Arizona, Texas, and Florida. But that plan fell through due in part to players voicing their concerns of not desiring to be apart from their families for that long an amount of time and not being able to play in their home city ballpark, both of which are certainly understandable. The predominant plan that later came forward and is currently being considered is the one that we will be reviewing today. Of course, with the ever-evolving status of the coronavirus and its impact, these predictions are subject to change. But as of now, we are about to explore together what is said to be the most likely scenario for a return of our nation's favorite pastime. The plan currently being considered is designed to limit travel for the teams and involves a realignment of the divisions for the teams, which would combine the American and National League teams together in the same divisions. In an effort to greatly reduce the amount of traveling the MLB teams would do, teams would only play opponents in the same division as them. This plan also allows for teams to play half their games at their home ballpark. I really like this plan because optimistically by July or August, things with relation to COVID-19 could be much better and would allow fans to potentially return to home ballparks to attend games later on in the season. We will circle back to these new divisions momentarily. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the biggest changes that jump out the most, and then we will get more in-depth on some of the smaller variations about the potential 2020 season. During a normal baseball season, which traditionally begins in the last days of March or April 1st, there are 162 games. The prediction being discussed right now would be for a 108 game or 100 game season set to begin in July sometime on or slightly before the 4th of July holiday and play on late into the fall. With a change in the grouping of the 30 MLB teams and their divisions, which results in only 3 divisions instead of the traditional 6, each game in a shortened season would have even more importance as far as a team competing to reach the postseason. With a normal baseball season, you'd normally have the East, Central, and West division consisting of 5 teams each for the National League and also in the American League. The proposal being considered for the shortened season is much different and removes the separation of National League and American League. Let's break down what the 3 shortened season divisions would look like. In the Eastern Division, the 10 teams are comprised of the New York Yankees, New York Mets, Boston Red Sox, Miami Marlins, Pittsburgh Pirates, Philadelphia Phillies, Tampa Bay Rays, Toronto Blue Jays, and the Washington Nationals. Note that the Atlanta Braves are not in the Eastern Division. Moving over to the Central Division, we see it will be made up of the Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox, St. Louis Cardinals, Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, Minnesota Twins, Kansas City Royals, Cincinnati Reds, Milwaukee Brewers, and the aforementioned Atlanta Braves. Finally, in the Western Division, the teams would be the Seattle Mariners, San Diego Padres, Oakland Athletics, Arizona Diamondbacks, Houston Astros, Texas Rangers, LA Dodgers, LA Angels, San Francisco Giants, and Colorado Rockies. The traditional AL-NL layout is as seen in the picture here, with the teams divided like this, and AL-NL teams would only play each other during interleague play during the regular season. It hasn't been made clear for the proposed plan for this season if, like during interleague play currently or in seasons past, there will be a designated hitter when games are played at American League ballparks with the visiting team being from the National League. If this remains the case, and National League teams will be using a DH while playing games at American League ballparks, it could affect how National League teams design their rosters since there will be much more use of a designated hitter. Assuming there will be no DHs for American League teams when they visit National League parks, AL pitchers would need to brush up on their bunting and hitting skills. Additionally, it will be interesting to see if AL teams will adapt any different strategies to try and manufacture runs while playing at National League ballparks if there is no DH. There will likely have to also be a good deal of scouting done, since teams will be facing pitchers from opposing teams that they are not familiar with. For example, the Texas Rangers won't be very familiar with the Colorado Rockies pitching staff, and vice versa. So there'll have to be some film watched and scouting done in an effort to better be prepared for what the position will be throwing at them, literally. My attempt at a baseball joke. While some pre-existent rivalries will get more exposure, such as the White Sox, Cubs, or Yankees-Mets, there could be some new rivalries formed this season as teams play new opponents with much more regularity. We'll have to see how that plays out. As for home field advantage, there will be no fans in the stadium. However, defensive advantages still exist, or still can exist, such as the home team's advantage of knowing how to play a ball hit off the green monster, how it's going to carry them off the wall of the green monster there at Fenway in Boston. What to do if a ball gets lost in the ivy at Wrigley Field in Chicago. How to play a ball hit onto Towles Hill before it got removed a few years back in Houston. Or how to play the ball in the right field corner at Oracle Park in San Francisco. That part right there where the right field meets center field, there's kind of some nooks and crannies there. Or how to make your approach to an at-bat strategy on a windy day at Wrigley Field. Just to make a few examples. From a defensive standpoint, I don't feel like the absence of the fans will impact defensive play because it's more of a reactionary or going through the motions type of response to field a grounder or catch a fly ball or throw the ball onto first base after fielding the grounder. But I do think the absence of fans could impact pitchers and batters to a degree. Undeniably, in major sports like baseball, basketball, and football, the players feed off of the energy coming from the frenzied, cheering hometown crowds. This year, at least for now, there will be no roaring crowd pumping up the adrenaline of a batter looking to come through on a 2-out hit with runners in scoring position to drive someone home. Nor will there be the influence of a standing ovation to help a closer reach back for a little more on his fastball to blow it by a hitter for the strikeout, or for a starter to get out of a jam to preserve the lead going into the late innings, just as a few examples. On the flip side of that coin, the away team's pitcher won't have to deal with the distraction of a raucous crowd going nuts while he is trying to focus on getting a batter out. For example, think of Kevin Costner acting as Billy Chapel in the movie For Love of the Game. When he is pitching at Yankee Stadium, the Yankee fans are just going nuts. They're cheering, they're all kinds of stuff going on. They're being really loud. And Billy Chapel says, "Clear the mechanism," to help him focus on his duel with the opposing player in the batter's box. If you're wondering if the MLB has ever had a game held at a stadium without fans, the answer is yes. On April 29th, 2015, following the protests and civil unrest stemming from the tragedy between Freddie Gray and the Baltimore PD, the Orioles and White Sox played a game at an empty Camden Yards. The game was eerily quiet, just felt weird, and certainly didn't seem the same. It was really odd to see, both from a visual standpoint as well as the absence of the sound of the roar of the crowd during big events in the game, such as a double play being turned, a big strikeout at a key time, or a home run being belted. Another thing to take into consideration, although using the Baltimore example is too small of a sample size to say with any degree of certainty, is that the game finished much faster than would have a normal game with fans in the stands. There were no in-between innings things like the kiss cam moments, fans dancing offbeat and awkwardly on camera, you know what I'm talking about, mascots racing around the outfield or on the base paths for people to win free tacos or anything like that. No fan competitions, no seventh inning stretch, or any of the other pageantry that is associated with a live baseball game experience. The only thing that made it seem somewhat normal from the footage that I saw was from the sound perspective, and that was the organ music. Also, in the silence created by the void of fan chatter and cheering, was the fact that the two dugouts could hear each other. I tend to think that could possibly lead to some increased tension, get some trash talk going, and could maybe even lead to a few more hit batters than normal. We'll have to see what happens with that. The next thought that I had about the potentially shortened season was, what about an all-star game? If they elect to have one, given the much shortened season, how would the players be selected since they did away with the National and American League, on paper at least? Would it still be players selected from teams that normally align with American or National League, or would MLB just scrap that for a different selection method altogether? We'll have to see. And then looking way down the road to the postseason, games could be played in late October on into November. Weather could become something of a factor for games played in northern cities where snow begins in sometimes as early as late October. You have a lot of cities that could get lake effect snow, Chicago, Cleveland, just to name a few. Then on another note, the shortened season will also impact players that are chasing milestones. For example, Miguel Cabrera, Robinson Cano, and Nick Markakis are all seeking to become members of the exclusive 3,000 hit club. This shortened season will make it more challenging for them to achieve that goal in seasons to come. It isn't the first time that players have had off-the-field issues cut into their ability to pile up stats. In the mid-1940s, numerous players missed at least 3 seasons while serving for their country in World War II. While there were quite a few impacted, some of the bigger names impacted by this were Bob Feller, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, and Phil Rizzuto. Ted Williams, who was also among MLB players who served the country in the Korean War, would undoubtedly have accumulated over 3,000 hits, and Bob Feller, who was a pitcher, of course, would have gone on to win well over 300 games. While DiMaggio and Rizzuto may not have been able to reach 3,000 hits necessarily, they would have certainly been able to rack up more hits and other stats over those 3 years. In more recent history, the 1994-95 MLB strike cut short career years for White Sox great Frank Thomas and Astros legend Jeff Bagwell. MLB also had strikes that shortened the season in 1981 and 1972. I'd like to go ahead and close out on a bit of a more somber note. Through some of the most difficult times in USA history, such as 9/11 or the Boston Marathon attack, baseball has been there to help the country recover. While baseball or other sports do not possess any tangible medicinal value for the human body, they have been there to help the country heal in the aftermath of tragic events or challenging times. Across the globe, almost every sport was suspended during the month of April as the world just kind of came to a halt due to COVID-19. Eventually, baseball and other sports will be able to resume. In a time that has been gripped by change and uncertainty and inconsistency, baseball will remain mostly the same in what it always has been at its root or most basic level, and has a chance to offer much needed comfort to our nation during this time of uncertainty. COVID-19 has certainly changed the world, and while baseball may be only a game, it does allow fans to come together as one and feel celebration and express grief together, even if it is at home on TV instead of together shoulder to shoulder at a ballpark. Baseball can help our country to begin the healing process of putting our lives back together, which is a slow process, and while none of us will forget the impact or loss caused by COVID-19, we must continue to push forward. Baseball offers a means for the country to galvanize and continue to march forward as one, and I hope it will be able to begin soon, provided, of course, that this shortened season option proves to be a safe one for the players, umpires, training and medical staff, and groundskeepers of the sport. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of SportStatMedia, and if you did, I invite you to like below and subscribe to our channel for more future content that will be coming soon. Some of the next upcoming videos will be a team-by-team preview of all 30 MLB teams to help you get ready for the season that will hopefully be starting this summer. As always, thank you for joining us and watching this episode, and I'll see you next time.